Coming up on Naked New York, a new film takes an up-close look at Sex in the City.
This is Mark Wells. He has produced and written a new documentary about sex and the nighttime club scene in New York. It's called Orphans of the New York Nightlife. Welcome. Glad you're here, Mark. Why did you want to do this movie?
I actually started this documentary not thinking that I was going to do it. It was just taking images for myself, for my memories. I came to New York thinking that I was going to stay for like 1 year. So I was just filming all this for myself because I did like what I was seeing.
And it's about, how shall I say this, kinky sex play at a lot of the clubs and some of the private parties here in New York.
Exactly.
Yeah. What surprised you?
People's behavior more than anything else.
Such as?
I'm coming from Barcelona, which is like a big city as far as nightlife goes.
Right.
But I thought that the people's behavior were very different. Were a lot more wilder in New York than anywhere else that I've been.
Why do you think it's kinkier in New York than it might be in a very sophisticated city like Barcelona?
Several reasons. I would say that maybe one of them is that the majority of the people that live in New York, they end up not making it here, so they come for like short period of time, and that probably plays an element. People, they probably want to take advantage of that time that they are in New York. No? It could be 1 year, 2 years, whatever. No?
Yeah, I thought there was an interesting explanation by one of the people in your movie, and it is a documentary, where the guy said, you know, if you come from a small town, let's say in upstate New York or Nebraska or Kansas, and you do kinky sex there, they think of you as a weirdo. In New York, you can just kind of melt into the scenery. It's okay here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's because maybe that sense of temporality, people probably explore here more than they would do in their hometowns. Mm-hmm. So that totally plays an element for that.
It also seemed to me that there was an interesting paradox, is that some people during the day might have been stockbrokers or bond salesmen or something like that, and they're into bondage at night.
I met a lot of people in New York that they have these sort of like dual lives. Yes. Where it's nothing to do what they do during the day, what they do during the night, but it's like there's so many people here that nobody knows. So you can let your fantasies go and explore.
Was this an extension of your own sexual interests?
I got very interested by it. That's how I ended up making the documentary. But no, I mean, most of the things that I saw here, I saw them for the first time. And I'm sure that all these things happened too in Barcelona and Europe. But here I was very fascinated by how people just let it all hang out. I mean, it's okay. Whatever you do, it's okay. And nobody cares really. And people even appreciate that you have these sort of fantasies and want to make them real.
And it is not for the faint of heart. There's some very explicit and sometimes tough to watch sex scenes in it.
I didn't understand the question.
It's very explicit sexuality, and some of it deals with a lot of pain and a lot of pins. Yeah,
you're talking about the private parties that I had access to go.
Right.
This is not mainstream New York club scene. Those are private parties that I was like, and I had access to them, and I was flipping out to see that, and I was able to film them. And yeah, I think it was very interesting because to some of those parties that I went, they were private parties for executives of firms, big firms, no? And so these people, they are married, they have families, they have kids, but then these people that they have these dual lives, then they go to these private parties and then they do what they do, you know? Could be S&M stuff, could be anything, no?
Did you have a problem getting them to allow you to film them if they had these other lives that they might want to protect this as their secret?
I was very much afraid of that, and I really thought that I was not going to be able to film that. I got into them because I just had an interview with the dominatrix a week before for my documentary, and then so we sort of became friends, and she told me, well, you might want to come to this party that I'm having and bring me your camera. You won't be able to film anything. So that's the way I went there, and I ended up shooting the whole thing, and nobody did really care.
Do they sign releases saying it's okay, so they didn't see you later? Really?
Not at all. But the thing is that most of them, they had masks on, so you couldn't really see who they were, and the ones that you can see who they are, they had, of course, the permission to make it public.
So do you think that might be a little more exciting for them to know that they're in this movie, but no one knows it's them?
Well, these parties, they have a very erotic element, and that could be erotic. Anything that goes into that, they could like this, but I might not be the first person to ask this.
Seems to me, Mark, there's another paradox at work here, is that on one hand, we're living in perhaps the most conservative political times of my lifetime, really. And on the other hand, there seems to be more kinky sex, especially here in New York, than I can ever remember.
That's a very interesting point, what you just said right now, because I haven't been in New York for that long, but most of the people that I'm interviewing, they pretty much all seem to agree that New York nightlife now, it's probably worse than any other time that compared to the 80s or the 90s. I think, even I was not there at the time, but I think for the interviews that I've made and my research, that things are still here. You just have to look for them more carefully. Mm-hmm. But you can probably find the same things that you could probably find during the 80s. It's not mainstream. You have to find.
Your film has done quite well since you released it. What has been the reaction outside of the kinky community, or is it mostly people who are into kink sex that are watching it?
I think that this documentary is very informative, and probably the best target for the documentary is the people that pretty much don't go out, and then they see what they're missing.
But are they watching it, though, or are you just preaching to the people who've already been converted?
Well, I haven't. I mean, I had a few screens in New York where I knew that there were very conservative people in the room, people that I know that they are very conservative, and they flipped out to know that all this is happening in the city and that it's not public, that they don't even know, and this could be happening right next to where they live.
Indeed, it could. Mark, nice to meet you. Glad you came here.
Thank you very much.